Buy, deliver with the two-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester, Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.
Three, two, one, and welcome back to Chasing the Racing, episode 76. And we're delighted to be joined by the creator of the best thing to come out of the lockdown, Mr. Rob Mack. How are we doing?
Very well, very well. Shocked that I'm in my garden, sat in the back of my garden in the studio, but hey, new things. 60-year-old, still new things happening to me.
Living the dream. Let's face it, of all the things you've achieved, you've peaked tonight on your own drive. There we go.
Now, most people, when we come around to do the interviews, they listen to the podcast anyway, but I know you have no idea what this is all about.
Not really, no.
You're in for a treat. You're in for a treat.
I'm looking forward to it.
Now, to be fair, right, I'm in your camp. I've not listened to one of these bands or listened to anyone else's. I just get dragged around the country with this idiot. So there we go.
Can I just say as well, obviously we're at your family home, and we've just been introduced to your family, and what a lovely couple of little kids you've got there. Really, like very well mannered and proper nice kids.
Did you beat
them up before you got there? I use a pillow to get no bruises, but no,
it works.
Yeah, they're brilliant kids, and we're having such a good time with them at the moment.
And we've came straight from Cadwell Park. Dom's been racing. Were you originally from this area?
Yeah. Born and bred in Scunthorpe, not so far away, and moved
slightly
up.
Different out here compared to Scunthorpe.
Well, no, we weren't quite. Did sound bad, that now.
Slightly
and the
different.
Suburbs of Scunthorpe. So pretty much born and bred around here, and Lincoln's a bit of a posh area, but I love it. I really love it. We moved here 14 years ago, and so live in Scampton Village, the home of the Dam Busters, and they've got a lovely pub, and we live in the country, and we're like 5 miles from the cathedral, so it's
perfect.
Now, to be fair, before we had this interview, you were telling us you were locked in a different country for a caddy while, so this is almost your second home, really, at the moment. Yeah. So what's the crack there?
Well, ironic. We got we have a house in the Canaries, which is a family home there.
Very nice.
Sounds nice, yeah. And we go for most holidays, kids' holidays, and Christmas there. And then this year, the kids are a bit older, and they're into the tennis in a big way. So we booked them into a tennis academy and did the first school term there. So we planned to be there from December to March, and then came home in August. So the school thing went really well, but the kids were getting a little bit tired of being out. I know it's sunshine, but when it's not your home, and the kids are missing their friends, and it was a bit of a tester at the end, because we ended up getting some flights, what we could book, when the flights eventually came. So we got the first flight, and we gave them a date when they were going to leave, and they're like, okay, and then that got cancelled. And then so we did that 3 times. So bless them, they sort of kept their heads up, but they were really ready for home by the time we come home.
And that's where the whole Rob Mack Memories thing started. And I bet you had no idea that it was going to turn into such a huge thing on Twitter. And you sort of created a monster, really, because once you started, you had to keep up.
Well, and you got to a point where you felt like you couldn't let people down, because they're all people who sat at home and they're getting depressed. Yeah, he felt a responsibility to all these old boys. But it broke I really quite enjoyed it, and just drifting back, and I used to go out on my bike and think about things, and then look forward to try and put something together. Then waiting for the feedback. The feedback's been fantastic, and I think it really has made a difference to a lot of people, and a lot of people missing it now. Not that they're looking forward to a lockdown, but I think they're.
I remember being sort of locked down up in Newcastle, and it was one of those things that at the end of the day, like you're a bit boring, and you thought, go on Twitter and you're learning things, and it's nice to reflect on happy memories, and you could see that the passion and the funny stories, sad stories.
Yeah, there was never any. There were any other sad ones, if you like. They were all good fun ones, because I only like to think of the fun stuff. And then the plan was that I'd start when I pretty much started and do a year a day, and I thought it'd be like 3 weeks. So that took me up to round about where I finished, but for the hell, I ended up for 18 weeks we got. So I didn't think I'd get into my management years. I thought it'd just be when I raced, because my racing years, as sharp as the management years, when it was costing me a fortune and people let me down, wasn't that much fun, and the memories aren't that clear at that time. But when you remember your own races, don't you? So it's quite easy. And the plan was that as it moved on, the younger guys would start jumping in. But I'm 60-year-old, so there weren't many could jump in, but. then as we got up to Alex Lowe's and Johnny Ray and them guys jumped in, so it was really good fun.
But the thing that was brilliant about them is people almost forget that racing isn't just about numbers and where you finish and positions and all that.
Totally.
It's the lifestyle around it, and like Chrissy was saying, it was the feedback between you and all the people giving you stories back, and it was fantastic because you could just scan. It didn't really mention numbers. It was just like, he's a bit of a dick. That was good crack. He shouldn't have done this, and he did that. It was brilliant.
Well, I guess the results weren't that brilliant anyway. So,
come on. We'll get into that later in the interview. You're being far too modest.
Now, with this podcast, we're very much go back to see the stories behind the racing, and obviously I've done a bit of research on your career, but. Going back to when you first got into it, are you originally from a racing family? Were your parents what was the introduction into racing?
Yeah, well, my dad raced, and my dad came over from Ireland and raced at a pretty high level in the late 50s, and to a point where he got an offer with I think it was Triumph, it was Surtees at one stage. No, he didn't do it. He couldn't afford to do it. He had to work. Do
you know the figures he was having to pay or anything like that? It's curious.
No. It was just like he had his own bike and he just
total privateer.
Yeah, total privateer. But he was getting some results. I mean, they were racing at old Crystal Palace and old tracks like that. I've not really looked back that far. But anyway, he retired and stopped when he was running out of money. He had to get a job. So
the damn curse of the sport.
Yeah. So he worked hard and set up a little business and got going. Then he started again in about, I don't know, probably 73, 74, just doing club races and nationals and stuff. And that's when we started going along. So I spent all my childhood at tracks annoying people on my little under 50 and stuff, razzing around. And so I lived on the circuits back in the day then. So, and then I eventually got to race my dad, which was quite spooky. Yeah.
And who was fastest?
Yeah, he was fastest. Yeah.
Now, how long did that transition
take?
It
was really funny because my first race was Cadwell, and I've been going for so many years with my dad, and then started thinking that I'm gonna be racing. I probably started shitting myself about 2 years before I actually got on the track. But I was just thinking about going racing. I'm going with my dad and watching him, and think, this could be me in a year's time. And it's crazy how passionate I was for it. So eventually I was 16.
So you literally jumped to the question.
Well, you couldn't start before then anyway, so I was 16. And I had a 404, Honda 404. I totally loved it. And there was no track days or anything like that. My first race was the first time I'd raced it on tarmac. I've been up and down the aerodrome, Blyton Aerodrome, which is a track now.
I've just been there.
Have you?
I was down there a couple of weeks. I didn't even know that place existed. Yeah, it's owned by a private car.
Janetta, yeah.
They rolled one of these things out, and it was like these lads had a stick well and truly shoved up their arse. They found about 200 grand a wheel. Yeah. 200 grand a wheel. Oh, shut up, man. Get a motorcycle.
Well, it's meant to be quite a trick play. I mean, the last time I went there, I went to watch Christian Hidden, the Supermotard, the British Championships there. But it was on my doorstep where I lived, and you always be out there with whatever bikes just razzing around. And that was the first time I ever sort of ridden, because I grew up on trials riding. So that was the first time I rode the bike, and then pretty much the second time was at Cadwell Park. And no track days then, no way of practicing, just pay your money and have a go. So my first race was with my dad, and it was open class and the push start. And I'd get a fast start on the gun, and then Dad would catch me and have a couple of tussles with my old man. I'm like, Jesus, Dad.
What was your dad on? The same thing?
He had an 850 Honda. He had a bit of a big old beast. So I'd have a tussle with him for a lap or so and shit myself. I'm like, Dad, either go back or just leave me alone. I didn't want to race with my dad, Jesus. Anyway,
sorry, I'm trying to get this dynamic. I'm like, my dad races bikes as well, and I'm just trying to think when you both pulled back in the paddock, and you all just piss off as your dad's smoking a rolly gun. You're not my son, he's not faster.
There's actually a video on YouTube of Dom and his dad doing a lap of the TT together. They set off together.
Did they?
And that must have. Did you ever get to do the TT with your dad?
My dad never raced the roads.
I didn't.
Right.
No,
I just thought with the Irish connection, I
totally. Yeah.
It's a little bit racist, Chrissy. But
We raced together for a couple of years, and then he stopped, and then I sort of got a Yamaha, because in the day I started on the proddy bike, and and it was a 500 four-stroke class. It was a really strong class at club level and nationals. There's all these trick Mochek Hondas and Yoshimura things, really trick. I had a complete shitbox. Literally, it was a road bike with, I ended up getting a Yoshimura cam, and that was it. It was a complete road bike. I totally loved it. But then the main class was the 350 TZ class. I mean, that was like GP class at Cadwell Park, and I bought a 350 TZ, and my mum pretty much disowned me. The death bikes, then, Robert, you shouldn't be buying it. You shouldn't be riding one of those. 2-stroke, everybody, they're all seizing up still. People getting flicked over the handlebars. You know, every week there was people getting flung off. So she wasn't that keen on me at all until I started winning, and then she was well happy. But my dad struggled to come. He's really weird, and he's not that type of bloke at all. He's a lovely, lovely old Irishman, but he struggled to actually come and watch me when he stopped. And I was sort of winning and whatever. He really struggled a little bit because he couldn't do it anymore. He's a bit too old. He didn't want, and he really couldn't. And it took him a while to sort of calm down. And then he was flying. Then he loved it. I took him all around Europe with me for a couple of years. I set him up when I went GPing, because my family moved to the Middle East and lived over there for a long time.
Was that through your dad's work?
Yeah, my dad was a steel erection type company.
Where in Ireland were you based? Was your dad based?
Well, he moved from County Monaghan.
Yes.
In Monaghan, and he came to live in, where was he living? Coventry first, and then he met my mum. He was on a job in Scunthorpe.
Charming Irishman.
Yeah. So he came over for them, but then they went when I was about 16, and so they moved over to the Middle East and worked there for probably 10 years. So they missed quite a lot of my racing, and my dad never saw my TTs. My mum came over for one. She saw my first win, but my dad never saw a TT. So then in the end, when I started to do okay, I said, "No, you need to come home now and just settle down and come racing with me for a few years." So I bought them a little camper and stuff, and they travelled around Europe with me for the last 3 years of GP. So that was brilliant. So yeah. So it's great, the full circle thing. But it was really weird that, I mean, he's not that nature at all, but he really struggled to even go to watch me race. I think he was missing it that much, and I don't know, it just all sort of kicked off. I mean, I started winning every weekend, and it was really weird. But
whereabouts does the road racing fit into? I know, like,
in your timeline.
In your timeline. It was at the same time at British or world level, or
no, it's right at the beginning. I got. I don't.
Did you do the Manx first?
Yeah, I did the Manx first. A friend of mine. I can't remember his bloody name now. But a pretty good friend of mine. He was doing the Manx, and I just set up on my 350 doing all clubbies and short circuits, and I was doing okay. I was a big lad then. Actually, I was bigger than when I did the TT in the 80s. I'd lost a bit of weight by then. Yeah. I was still massive, but I was pedaling this 350 around, and I was doing pretty well. And he was doing the Manx. And he said, "Oh, you should have a go at the Manx." And it's just one of those. I used to go to TT and watch my dad, and I really loved it. But
I was wondering how that fitted in. So at 16, you've gone to Cadwell, you've gone around the Honda 500, and then suddenly someone just nudges you a few years later. So you and your dad actually went over the Isle of Man.
As a kid, I used to go with the family summer holiday to the TT.
Oh, brilliant!
Used to sit on the bank. I was there for Granty's crazy one in 70.
Sorry, hold on. His crazy one. Talk me through his crazy one.
Well, when he broke the lap record, we were sat down at near Governor's Bridge, and he broke the lap record. It was a crazy time. He was 114 or something, and it all went quiet. He disappeared. It's like Jesus, and then no one. It was from the bungalow. He'd gone missing, so everybody thought he was flipping flying. Thought the worst, and then he come cruising past us, like freewheeling past us, and everybody's oh my God. Yeah. So I had the sort of bug for that, but
I was wondering that, yeah.
But I never really. I don't know. I wasn't desperate to do it, but it's just like one of those things. I think I look back at my career, and nothing really was planned. It just sort of all fell along. Yeah. And I just I never followed a championship. I never looked for. I just used to look what was on and go and race somewhere. Like in the club days, just look what was on. Oh, let's go and get it. I never followed anything at all, and it was the same all the way through. I'd never really plotted anything. It just all sort of rolled into each other. And then I went to the Manx and totally loved it. Absolutely loved it. Clicked it. And I should have won the newcomers first year. I had 30-second lead, and I fell off at Whitegates. Ran after the bike, picked it up, and finished second by 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So I should have.
Whereabouts is Whitegates on the lap?
Up May Hill. You go up May Hill, and that fast left before you get to the Ramsey hairpin.
There's a lovely little estate there now. Now,
Yeah,
Whitegate, there's a lovely little bump.
Used to be a white gate.
Now, but that's bloody but they've got posts there now that they actually remove, and you go through on a big bike now.
So
But
fast
it's
now.
but
So bumpy.
no, they've actually taken that away now.
Taking
like
the bumps away?
like because like Bruce Anstey.
Well, they have everywhere. The whole place is like a completely new place.
It's like, but the same, like as you understand, and it's obviously the safety development now. But like was last year they upgraded it, and it's like a positive camber, and the thing is you can just sink the thing in dry. But the year before that, it was like put your gum shield in, and
well,
straight round. It was
I
mint.
know. I have this problem every year where let record, and like honestly, the track, some parts of the track, are so many seconds quicker. It's a joke. Hilbury and all them sections there, and someone like Sulby Straight and Corey Benz used to be like second gear. And the road was like that, and you wouldn't dare go in the gutter. You flipping couldn't hold on. You nearly had to hook your feet under the footrest down Sulby Straight. It was mental. You couldn't go flat or anything.
I was about to say on it, like I race 504 classics round there, and it's just boom. Straight up the cables, Ballard Bridge, straight down, and you just stretch the thing, and you just go, wow. Personally, I'm a big fan of the safety. Not going to lie, Rob.
Totally. But like you're going quicker, are you? That's the thing. I mean,
and from the Manx, did you do the Manx the following year?
I did the Manx twice. Then I missed a year. I can't remember what happened, but I did it. I did it again on a 750. On that 750 in my house, TZ 750 and a 350. And I should have won the Manx that year. Ran out of petrol. Did I run out of petrol? Yeah, ran out of petrol. I forgot to stop actually.
Mm-hmm. And then from then, was it?
The bloke's waiting there like that. I'm like,
we'll see him in 20 minutes.
And when you next went back, it was the full TT.
It's TT, yeah.
And at that time, you were was it the sort of an equivalent of BSB type of thing?
Yeah, it was BSB, and I was a privateer. So I had some really great sponsors, local people from Scunthorpe, friend of the families. And he bought me my 750 and looked after me. I was working for him, but I was riding the bike really full time.
I was about to say, before the whole wonderful world of motorcycles took over, did you have a trade?
Steel erector.
Steel erector?
Steel erector, yeah. I only worked till I was about 18, I think.
All right, so 16, you got on a bike, and then from 16, obviously you're still erecting steel, and then going from there, 18, it was professional motorcycle racing?
I was about 19 when I went pro. As I went pro...
That is a narrow... done.
Yeah. Well, but I was so lucky. I ended up having a sponsor who was a real big friend of the family, good business going. Not crazy, but a really lovely Irish guy called Frank Gallen. And he sponsored me, so I worked for him still in the day on my bikes mainly. and then he sponsored me. So that was my start. And then I got my Suzuki contract I had 2 years with him. And I got my Suzuki contract, so I was away. So as a privateer, I was nearly professional.
Fantastic.
So, it was a brilliant journey, yeah.
So, sorry, trying to fit it back into a timeline. So when did you start? What age were you when you started the road? So you've gone from 16 to 19, like pro, semi-pro, getting paid.
Well, my first Manx was 79.
79.
So I think I did 79, 80, then I had...
You're the maths teacher.
20. When you were 20 and 21.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So you had this...
I think I won the TT when I was 23. Well, I don't know. 83. And I'm 60. 1983.
He's
24.
on it. We've got a maths teacher here. We're laughing. So was that always part of the Suzuki contract? It's always like... Cause it seems to be always a big talking point now, isn't it? It's been like are riders allowed to do it now? You'll be very lucky to get a factory ride with being able to do everything these days. So what was the situation with you?
It was the opposite. It was nearly the opposite, yeah. I think I did the Manx as a privateer, showed quite a lot of promise. And I was bashing fairings with the factory boys as a privateer anyway. So I was a sort of next young kid to get a chance. And but the TT was massive for Suzuki and Honda, the two main UK importers.
Was it still the part of the World Championship then?
Yeah, it's part of the World Formula One Championship. There's only 3 round series. It wasn't So it was a TT, Ulster and Aston with the 3 rounds. So I was Andy on the short circuit. I had to take on Joey. So Joey was TT, and then Aston was probably, and then Ulster. Fucking hell, Joey's back garden.
And what was it? Were you good friends with Joey?
No, not really.
Brilliant.
No, but I don't know. I don't really know many people who were good friends with him. He was just aloof. He was
kept himself to
yeah. I
himself.
had a drink with him now and then, but I weren't a drinker. I was a total opposite to Joey. I was a young kid. But I was total opposite to Joey. I wanted to go. By then, I wanted to go Grand Prix racing. Everything's been falling into place, but the Suzuki thing, they had a way out to go to GP. They had a GP team then, with Momola and a few of them, and the UK team had an arm in there, so there was a chance to get to Grand Prix. And by then, I was doing pretty well on the short circuits, and I wanted to go. And the TT was definitely a leg up. If I did well for Suzuki, I might get a chance on the 500, and that's exactly what happened.
And when you won your TT, what sort of lap speed was it back then?
It was what do you want it by to the
a mile an hour
second?
type thing. No, mile an hour.
No, I want both. If you can remember both, let's go for it.
118.43. Incredible, isn't it?
That's early 80s.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the years I did with Joey were pretty fast years. It lasted for quite a long time, and I don't want to sound like an old fart, but the track was, some of the parts of the track, you had to have so much respect for it. Honestly, and I think in one aspect, maybe the danger of the track was scary enough, and people had respect, and no one really crashed it. So a lot of those places because you had to. Well, you can't do that. If you wanted to, you were probably going to crash. I mean, all that section from Hilbury all the way home, my God, that was like just
second gear turns and
everything,
all sorts,
and like now all that, and now that's that new estate and stuff. It's so.
And do you know now how we have the main TT and then we have the classic TT as well?
Yeah.
Was it a similar sort of setup back then?
There's no classic then.
No classic.
No. The TT was a really good thing. I mean, I totally loved it, but I sort of by the time I was sort of cracking. Getting a bit of interest from Grand Prix level, if you like, or that level. In my mind, I'd already thought I don't want to ride a TT anymore.
Really?
So,
do you know when the classic TT started?
It was only a few years ago.
Yeah,
to be fair, it was a kind like now. Obviously, there'll be a lot of people listening to this might get upset, but the Manx Grand Prix was losing that little bit more interest. Well, obviously, it's a private. It's the privateer version of the TT, and that's the trouble. It's a club level, so you've got to pay entry and everything like that. And because the numbers weren't there as big, the club was struggling and it was getting down. And the Isle of Man needs to run it in a way of trying to get money and infrastructure onto the island. So the Isle of Man government, who run the TT, run the classic TT to try and get in. So then
get the big names and
whatever. Well, they got the hair gel wankers there, like this.
Dom's won a classic TT, by the way.
Oh, is he? All right.
Yeah, not a TT.
Is that class as a win, though?
I've got a big fuck off trophy with my name on it, Rob. Not to me, I'm telling you.
Respect.
So
it's nearly as bad as the electric one, isn't it?
Worse.
That's a controversial topic.
It's got petrol. It gave me an erection. That's a win, I'm telling you. There we are.
So after finishing the TT and going on, was it a step from the equivalent of BSB onto the Grand Prix scenes?
My last TT is I was 84, and at the beginning of the year I didn't have anything other than that 1 year contract with Suzuki, but I decided myself that I didn't want to do the TT anymore. That was it, and I never told anybody. I didn't even tell my wife. Mm-hmm. I did. In my mind, I don't want to do the TT. I've been there, done that. And in my mind, it was a bit of a law of averages. And,
which is fair enough. You've been there, you've won it, you've dealt with the best, you've done. I didn't want to understand.
I raced with Joey and the boys at that time.
Yeah,
and I just wanted to. And there weren't anybody else racing short circuit at that level. With aspirations to go on anyway. So it's a bit of a. I don't know. I guess I was determined to move on to a point where I didn't want to race anymore. So I did the TT, and I was really lucky. I won both of them that year. I won the classic and the senior. And I was in the middle of doing a few wildcards for Suzuki then, so I didn't have a contract then. But I was making myself pretty much aware. I qualified on the front row a few times on the shitbox Suzuki, so I was getting a little bit of interest, and I thought I know I can get there. So with that in mind, I decided that I wasn't going to race. So literally, the 500 team came over from Nürburgring. We'd gone to Salzburg and Nürburgring, and then it was I flew back to ride the 4-stroke, the 1000cc 4-stroke at the beginning of the TT practice. So the 500 team drove from Nürburgring to the Isle of Man. So by the time they got there, I tested the 500 midweek. So it was really hectic. So, but I ended up winning both races. And then the 500 team, the 500 race was on a Wednesday, and they set off straight back to Paul Ricard for the next Grand Prix. So and I was flying in there. So after Friday night, I won the Classic, like high as a kite. And I told the Suzuki guys and everybody else, I said, I don't want to race here anymore. And I got on a flight, went to Paul Ricard and crashed and put myself out for 6 weeks. So yeah,
because it's recently Hickman. He talks about he went from, it wasn't last year, the year before when he won the senior, and then he went straight from there to Knock Hill.
Yeah.
So you've gone from 37 mile to how big's Knock Hill?
1.3, I think.
1.3. So now how hard was that transition for you? Well, obviously after that story.
Well, I was unlucky there. A guy sort of fell in front of me, but
damn him.
Yeah, but I think like Hickey's a good example. He's riding so sharp on the short circuits, or he was, and he can go he can take that to the road. I mean, I think maybe the riding the road's a bit harder. I don't know now, but when I was doing GPs, I mean, I was in the middle of a GP year, so with respect to Hickey, I won't qualify on the front row at Knockhill.
No, you were qualifying at the World's
Nürburgring with
which
Eddie
is
Lawson next to me. So I was in such the zone, that I could come back and ride at on the roads. And you don't ride the roads like you don't ride the roads like you do scratch round Donington, do you?
Oh no, but that's what I find very interesting, because like you've just said, you've gone from the world's hardest road race to the hardest short circuit racing that's ever been conceived. So for you, it was just simply a switch. It was just like, let's get on with it.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's because I could ride the TT and I could back off. I mean, I didn't think I ever. I never had. Well, I did have a scare, but it was a mechanical. But I never got anywhere near the curbs, or never really. I was really lucky. I never raced it in the rain, but I never really had any scares there. And I felt like you see a big ball. Everything's slowed down, and your timing's perfect, and you're just so on it, and it was really quite easy. So,
but funny enough, you say that, because that's what everyone who said. Like when you talk, like Lee Johnson last year, you think when they won their first TT, it was like it doesn't feel like you've won one, which is interesting, because that terminology hasn't changed from ever.
No,
which is mint.
Well, I think, like you say, if you're learning your trade, like riding around Donington Park at the front, and every corner you're losing the front, or you're just spinning it up, and you're just saving it, and it's inch perfect, and you run into the stripe, and if the bike doesn't spin, you don't turn, you're totally in the zone. You are one with that bike and every part of it. Where you get to TT and it all comes back, and it's just you got to be confident, but you're nowhere near that level on your bike.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably different now, but I think I took my knee once in the Isle of Man, Craig the Bar and 32nd milestone, something like that. But so I don't know how hard you're scratching around there now, but it's never like that.
Right.
Then.
With your Grand Prix career, did you go straight into the 500s from like sort of BSB?
Oh no, I rode a 125.
Did you go one?
No, fucking.
How tall are you?
We have on a 250, straight to 500.
No, straight to 500.
And in that era, obviously you mentioned Eddie Lawson.
Yeah.
Who was the big cheeses when you first went there?
Oh man, it was unbelievable. I mean,
Me,
hell of an Eddie. It was a hell of an era, wasn't it?
Well, it was, and I think it was one of them where I was desperate to get there, and I sort of got there with the Suzuki boys, and it was my little team, and we'd all gone together. We'd sort of grew up together, and they had no budget. The Suzuki had pulled out. They were working off bits off the floor, basically. And I went as Sheen's teammate. Sheen had his own little team and he had all the goodie bits, and we were scraping by. But I was his teammate as such in '84, and we went there just because I'd done well for them at the British Championships and the TT. And come on, let's make it happen. And it was I don't know how to explain it really. It was like a dream, taking my old little team and pedaling the Suzuki around. Nobody thought that Suzuki would be competitive, and this big bloke turns up and puts on the front row. Sheen's on the fourth row or something. He's like, what the fuck? He wasn't happy at all with that. And I was just totally loving the whole roller coaster, and it was crazy. So I never really felt like I should have been there, but it was my own little team, and we just riding the bollocks off this old bike, and just getting crazy results, and it was just like a dream. So for them to get a contract with the biggest team in the paddock, it never ever really sunk in that I should be there. You know, fat bloke from Scunny, you know, riding with Eddie Lawson, my teammate, he's just wrong.
And
you know?
like for people listening to this, how tall are you?
I'm not tall, I'm 5'11", but I'm wide.
I was going to say, you know,
You did struggle to get in the studio, didn't you? Like your shoulders
bike
got
races
stuck.
in general, you know, have a very specific physique. Like if you look at MotoGP now and you look at like Quartararo, Marquez,
Smalls.
I think the heaviest person on the grid is around 70 kilograms, something like that.
Yeah.
Do you like what were you when you were racing Grand Prix?
84, 85.
Sorry,
Kilo.
84 kilos.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a good sort of 15 heavier than what anyone is on the Grand Prix. Was it
Now, yeah, I think Kevin was man, he was gangly. He was 6 foot, over 6 foot. He's gangly, but you know, Eddie was probably 75.
I mean, you've got like big hands and like big arms. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I've sort of gone a bit south since, you know, I'm now 60.
it's not south, beefed up.
But I had to work my bollocks off to try and stay to around about 13.5 stone. And like, there was all, you know, the heaviest was, I don't know, 10.5, 11. Eddie, they're all tiny, skinny guys.
At least if you got in any trouble, you could
sort
a few out.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's funny because I was chatting to Neil the other day and we always have a bit of a reminisce. And, you know, we were there. I think it was the best time ever. I mean, it's different now with all these youngsters and the way the bikes are and the electronics and stuff like that. There's no way you could get away with. Well, and a lot of 250 guys come through and they couldn't ride their 500s because they were just animals and there's no help anywhere. But we didn't come from like dirt tracking and things like that. We weren't groomed from an early age riding dirt track bikes to go on to things. We didn't do that. You know, we flipping rode fizzies around and razzed around and then away we went. You know, we
drank beer, smoked tabs, and rode motorcycles.
Yeah, exactly.
Blokes.
So it's like, how did it ever happen? You know, you're sitting there with like AMA, Eddie Lawson, AMA champion, flipping Wayne Rainey, dirt track champion. You know, back in the day, it was all rear wheel steering. You know, it's totally different now.
Do you think that's where the Yanks had the advantage?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and a lot of the development and bikes and tyres went that way as well. When Freddie turned up, it was all, you know, all pushed towards that way.
And out of the sort of American contingent, who was your like your main mate out of them?
Well, I guess I got to know Swans was a good friend of mine. Eddie was a good mate, but he's a little bit introvert. But I ended up staying with him. I went and lived with him for like 3 months one year in California and trained with him for pre-season. Got to know him really well, and he's a really top bloke. I mean, he's all too old for you two guys. You probably don't even know the stories of Ed and what Ed was like and things like that. Not really.
Well, what was he like?
Well, he was just like he was so cold, you know. He was
very calm and collected.
Oh, but on his bike, I mean, it's called Steady Eddie, but he was absolutely inch perfect. And if you were following him, you know, his rear wheel would be, you know, 3 or 4 inches out of line, just like absolutely beautiful. You'd never see it from the side. You know, might see Swan sideways and out the saddle and Gardner losing it, but you know, trying to follow Lawson, it was like, you know, he's just unreal. You could.
What was Baz like? Sort of on a personal.
Loris Baz?
No, Barry Sheen.
Oh, Baz, Loris Baz, fucking hell.
Yeah, what's Loris Baz like? You know him. Hold on. I want both.
What was being teammates with Barry Sheen?
Yeah, well, it was again. It was a bit in awe, really. I mean, it was difficult because he made things pretty hard for me because he wasn't that keen on this young kid coming up on his Suzuki, which he was struggling with and calling it was crap. You know, he was sort of obviously on his way back, and I was brave as hell and desperate to impress people. So he wasn't too keen on me, really.
Are we talking the divide in the paddock situation, or was it like not inviting you out for a couple of drinks?
We were in little tents then.
Oh,
you know, he had his own
still,
tent. His own little tent. But no, we weren't.
Your crew chief beating up his crew chief.
Yeah,
and all sorts. Oh, well, go on.
There's all about. There's all like, what the hell? You know, what have they got? Well, we've got what you don't want. You know, you've tossed away in the bin. We've dragged it back out again.
Brake pads and all sorts. Brilliant.
But yeah, I mean, I think as it got a bit more established, Mamola was a good friend of ours, and we got on really well with it. The Americans didn't get on with each other; they fucking hated each other. Absolutely, honestly, Eddie and Swans and Rainey and all them, my God.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Couldn't even be in the same room. It was unbelievable.
Well, you think the Americans are all, we're Americans, stick
Oh, no,
together,
but honestly,
yeehaw.
but over there, I mean, over there, they just, the rivalry's intense.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess they would have a rivalry anyway from the national series.
What they
and
brought home.
Then
Yeah.
brought
well,
it with them.
yeah, when... Well, Swans and Rainey came after Eddie, really.
Mm-hmm.
So Eddie turned up and he was a sort of apprentice of Kenny,
Mm-hmm.
and so they weren't that, and Randy came at the same time. They weren't that close, but Eddie was on his own. But then when Rainey and Swans came, fucking hell, they really didn't like each other.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Like,
really.
to what? Like, come on.
Oh.
I want, like, just.
Well,
oh,
yeah,
God.
no.
Come on, give us some gossip.
No,
just give us something.
Can't go into that.
Of course you can. Of course you can.
Is obviously you mentioned Neil Mackenzie there.
Yeah.
Was it this sort of era that you met Neil?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Neil came through behind me, and I met Neil because he ended up riding the Suzuki when I was on the Yamaha, and for my old team, and he was looking at signing for them, and ended up signing for Honda, and so ended up being a real pain in the ass. And from being a good mate, but on the Suzuki, I'm going to kick his ass all day long, to all of a sudden getting a full factory Honda, I'm like, fuck that.
This went
and
south.
the first race, he turned up. He'd been to Suzuka testing for Honda at Suzuka for a month, living there. Done the 2-4 race before, done really well there. So we turned up the first 1987, I think. Suzuka Grand Prix, first time for 40 years back in Japan. Mackenzie's on fucking pole position. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, that.
We were mates.
Yeah, we were mates once, hang on.
You've ruined this,
it was
Neil.
like, it was Mackenzie fever, he just turned up. I'd been grafting my balls off all year, and he turns up and poof. But we're really good mates. So we travelled. I did the whole travelling thing together for the next sort of 5 years, really quite close.
Because you were just saying you were just in touch with Neil. Is that Neil Mackenzie you
Yeah,
were talking? So
yeah,
you're still good friends after all
totally,
that.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
and I sort of I'm not that close to him, but I've sort of roller coasted with his kids. Obviously, I've known his kids since they were babies, and seen them grow up and watch the roller coaster ride they've had with them, and now they're still doing it. So. No, we've gone on the tennis route, so it's quite a little bit less stressful.
Was it a similar time that you both went back to BS, what is BSB?
I went back in, I go back 1990, and Neil still had a few more years at GP. I think we raced together, maybe 92, something like that, when he rode a Honda, but the Honda was pretty crap. I remember, there was one race where at Dorrington where he was on a Honda, and he was really struggling with his Honda, but there was this, I can't remember what it's called now, but it was like $6,000 to win, and it was something like £100 a lap if you led every lap, and I was on decent start money, so I could have done about 12 grand. So I thought, and I was like the man. Yeah, it was $6,000. He won if you won everything, if you won led every lap. And
sorry, is this a BSB?
Yeah, it was a support race for GP, I think it was. The middle, and Robert Fenella was running Dorrington then. Mm-hmm. He gave us a deal to come, and we put it all together, and it was big money in the day, and he was getting a bit of start money as well. And so it was really me and Haslam. Haslam was on the Norton, and I can't remember who else. And so me and Neil had a bit of a divvy up, and I said, listen, whoever gets the whole shot, the other one gets in the way, or holds Ronnie up, or this was the plan. So and we'll split it. So Neil's going, yeah, great idea. So Neil was well up for that. He was fucking slow as a flipping, honestly, he was not even on the pace, but I don't know why I agreed to it. So I agreed to it. So the flat lights went green, and I just went, poof. I had about a 3-second lead on the first lap. I just gone. When there's money involved, I can really concentrate, So I took off, and Neil was about 10th. He had nothing to do with Ronnie or anything like that. I'm like, and he said, "Oh, what about the deal?" I'm like, "Fuck off!"
I don't blame you.
Yeah. And what about the deal? I says, "You didn't flipping help me at all. You were like
You're in 10th."
So he was riding that Honda, good for him, but he was nowhere in it. Anyway, so I ended up, he said, well, I won't take the lap money off you because fair play, you took off. But come on, so I ended up splitting, that mates as we are, I still ended up splitting the money with him.
That is, I bet he watched you all the way from 10th going,
I'm not risking anything, I'm on a good earner.
No wonder your wife's got a fantastic table in the living room. There you are. She could have had a bigger one if Mackenzie just wound his neck in.
Yeah.
And so was that a bit of a one-off race? That as a
but there was a few like that.
Race?
Yeah.
And then back to the sort of BSB. Who was the main riders in the class when you came back from GPs?
GPs. Well, I did a couple of years at World Superbike.
Right.
So I was sort of. I finished the GP years with Cabin Honda. I took over a guy called Bubba Schobert who got injured, and so I took his ride when I was sort of pretty much out of a job, and because we had a couple of years, had a year with Pepsi Suzuki with Kevin Swans, and then
that's a very iconic. That is a very iconic. That is a fantastic.
Was that for Jeff? Was Jeff Cross the team manager then?
No, he was my crew chief.
Right. So I had Jeff on the podcast not so
long
ago.
He was my crew chief.
And you've got more hair than Jeff, so there you go. He's going to kill me next time he says that.
Yeah, he's getting pissed off at me because like Kevin was winning and I was grovelling around in 10th place, but that Suzuki was without Kevin Swans, that Suzuki was doomed.
I tell you what, you're both big blow. Who would win in an arm wrestle? You or Jeff?
Yeah, I'd vote Jeff. Yeah. He's a bit of a Nancy boy.
Can we get the exclusive on that? Chase the racing, right? We either take you up to Redcar or get Redcar down to you.
It has to be left-handed, though.
Is this table going to take that? A couple of glory. That is well up for that.
I wasn't even aware that you went to World Superbikes.
Yeah.
What bike were you on when you went there?
Well, I did the Suzuki year with Kevin, and then I was pretty much out of a job. I got let go really late. Gary Taylor, the manager of Suzuki, sort of kept me hanging on. Anyway, he flipping let me go in like bloody, I don't know, December, when I pretty much had a deal. So didn't have anything. So I started the next year. This is like, I mean, I don't think I really needed to do it, but I was still quite young. I don't know. I must have only been about 30, but I didn't really want to give up. Although I didn't really want to give up. I didn't have anything, so I ended up doing a deal with Padgett's to do some World Superbike on a RC30, and went to pick the bike up, went to see Clive Padgett, and I picked up this van. Fuck me, you had never seen anything like it. This van had been around all, I bet, well, it was a 1981 van. This was like 1990, and it'd done like 3 million miles. The diesel tank was leaking. I got it home, the fucking diesel all over my drive. This van, every rider's ever had it, I think, through the Padgett's years.
Because I've heard stories about this. Like his dad, he just like Clive and that. They used to just, him and his brother used to go off and rate. Is that the case? They used to just chuck money at them, and they used to go off and go do GPs and in this process fan.
Well, no, I think that was probably a bit because Clive. I don't know when Clive finished racing, but Clive was top GP running.
I've heard that.
Yeah, he was going to be the man he was. Yeah, it was really a shame that he got injured. So Padgett's were brilliant. They gave me the van and the RC30, and it cost me a fortune to get this van up to anything like. Yeah, honestly. And I don't know. I didn't want to stop racing, and so I converted my garage at home into a workshop and did everything myself. I just got a couple of mates, and so I went to the first round at Donington. This was I don't know if this was it might have been the first Superbike race for the start of World Superbike. 1989, sorry, yeah, beginning of 89. And I rode this RC30, man, it was just a pile of shite. It was absolute shite. I couldn't ride it at all. Just didn't suit me, and it was just shite.
Clive, it's shite.
Well, I'll get onto that, because I ended up crashing. I ended up running over Steve Islop. He fell off in front of me, and I ran straight over his bloody head. And
Jesus.
And what did I break? I broke a couple of bones in my hand. So I was like, fuck it, I can't believe this. I had no job. Paddy's jumped in and helped me.
I ran over Steve Hislop.
Yeah, first race, break my wrist. Fuck it, no. So then I was at Tether's End then, and I still didn't want to stop. I didn't really have a lot. I had a decent deal with RI and the leathers people, things like that. So I had decent income coming in, bits and bobs. But I wasn't desperate for cash, but I just didn't want to stop racing,
Yeah.
So I said to Clive that we need an OW01, we need a YAM. And he's like, well, okay, we'll get Yam. So I ended up going to Andy Smith at Yamaha, who was the MD down there, a really good friend of mine. And we got an OW, and I brought it home in a box, unboxed it with a broken wrist still, and got it, literally stripped it myself. I'm not a great mechanic, but stripped it myself. Got a mate helping me. Took an engine down to a guy called Dave Junior Collins, who worked for me at Suzuki, a really great engineer, great tuner, and he built the engine for us. And I was literally up and down the M25 to fetch him, build the bike up, built this bike up, rebuilt this shitbox van, drove to the next round at Hungary with me, just my mate, just another mate. There was two of us. The guy, Doug Alton, who's an ex-mechanic of Ducati and stuff, him, and just my childhood riding buddy from Scunny. We drove to Hungary in this shitbox van with my cast on still. Honestly, it's like, why, Rob? But I just didn't want to stop. So I drove to Hungary, the next world round, and they got there, cut my cast off. And I thought,
how long a healing did you have?
Well, the first round, there's a bit of a gap, probably 3 weeks. But in that 3 weeks,
with a broken wrist.
Yeah, in that 3 weeks, I'd built a new bike. In fact, got a new bike, built it, managed to get it tuned and all the suspension done and all that. Drove to Hungary. And never seen the Hungarian before. Got on with it, and I got on the podium. I got on the podium
of World Tour.
Yeah, World Tour bike. Yeah, got on the podium.
3 week heel wrist. Brilliant.
Yeah, and then it was happy days. I mean, I wasn't earning anything because that bloke, McLaughlin, or whoever set it up, nobody was getting paid. So, but it was just brilliant, And it's like going back in time a bit. Just the mates going down there, and fucking hell, the exhaust fell off on the way back from Hungary. But I got a phone call, so we're all peaking. I think I had a third and a fourth. And we're all peaking, driving back. Got a phone call from Honda America saying, would I sign for them and ride the cabin bike, that cabin Honda bike from Bobby Schobert. So that was literally on the drive home from Hungary. So I drove, packaged it all up, and obviously got a decent deal for that. And got everything mint, like the package van was mint. Give him this brand new OW, what you just finished there at thing, and put it all back to Clive, and I can't remember Clive's dad now. Don was in the Isle of Man, wasn't he? What was he? I can't remember what this guy was. Anyway, lovely boat. He says, "Oh, Robbie done well. How about slipping this 10 grand for the? I mean, it didn't cost them anything. I got my bike for Yamaha, and it fucking cost me 10 grand to get the van fixed.
Yes,
nearly, and then give it back to them. But they wanted a little bit of a
taste,
a bit of a drink out of it. Fair play, Yorkshire blokes. But I think he stole that bike about 10 times to Rob Mack's Hungary winning OW01.
They'll be listening to this now going, I've got one.
I've got one.
I've got one. There we are.
Yeah. So I got another year at GP's there on a year-old 500. That was tough because it was like 89 and it was a year that like I think the Big Bang came out. The Big Bang Honda came out. And it was a monster bike to ride. That was Gardner. Gardner had ridden it the year before, and Doohan, I think, and it was an animal. But it was the year when it smoothed it all out. So it was a really tough year. I did really well on it, really, considering.
Is that when you got? I was looking through your career history, and you got a few fourths. Was that on that bike?
No, that's on the Yam. That was on the Yam, yeah. But I had some decent rides, and the times and stuff. I matched all the year before's times, which is like a year too late. Mm-hmm. So I had a great year, and I had not a bad earning year out of it, but it was always, it's going to end. There's not really going to anything happen from there. And I didn't really chase anything at the end. I don't think I really fancied staying there any longer. I'd sort of
done your time.
I'd done my time there. It was hard work being heavy at the Grand Prix. It really was. And I most of my career I spent with fucking eyeballs inside my flipping my visor. Because I could never get alongside anybody. He was always passing people from here, and and all my career's been like that. So
dive bombing.
Yeah, pretty much. Or he was always hanging on, and I was super fast if I had grip, if a new set of tyres and qualifying. I mean, I was on the front row nearly all my career, but like come race day, when halfway through a race and you're knackered and your arm pump and your brakes are fucked and your tyres are gone. You're carrying 2.5, 3 stone heavier than anybody else on a 500.
Yeah, you've got.
I'm not making excuses, but I had a great time, but it was getting tough. And
it's a little bit like that last year or the year before with Tom Sykes when the new BM came out, and he could always put it on the front row, but in a race he would just go backwards on the straight.
And it was like that. It was like he was so hanging on. And then, but then I got on a superbike, and it's like, fucking hell, hang on a minute,
Do you feel like the disadvantage was not as big?
Well, but I rode the wheels off it. I was going back. It's like going back again, and 500. You go into a turn and you crack it, and it doesn't tell you anything other than fucking smelly hospital aluminum when you land. You're in midair. You're in midair kicking before you even thought about it. Well, you ride a superbike, and it's like you go down Craner, and you go right. You get to McLean's, and you're gonna push the front a bit. All right, I'll be ready for it. It's like second class post. I'll tell you, something's gonna happen. Yeah, 500's like fucking. But like one of them superbikes, the front mushy and the frames flex and everything. You got such warning with it. It's like, oh my god, this is brilliant.
I would generally love to watch BSB or Worlds with you. I've got front end chatter. You're sitting there, shite bag. What are you whinging at?
Well, honestly, it was like it felt like it was so easy. Everything was so flexible and so forgiving. You got away with so much. And I totally loved it, and I just rode the wheels off it, and it was a doddle again.
Was that straight into a team in World Superbikes?
Well, I rode for the Loctite team, which was Steve Parrish was running the team then. Right. So it was me and Terry Reimer were teammates, and I did a year at World Superbike, and he did British, and then the next year we swapped and did a few together. So it was brilliant. I loved it. It was good. And the World Superbike, I got on the podium a few times, and I finished fifth in the championship. But it was on if you start listening to this back, it sounds like a right fucking whinger. But it was on a British.
But we can edit it. We can, but we're not going to.
But it was on a British team, not that well funded, and it was against the factory Kawasaki's were there and Ducatis. Like Raymond Roche was winning it on the Ducati, and he was a bit of a mate of mine from Grand Prix, and he'd take the piss. He'd just come past you like fastening his helmet and like. Giving you that, under the squeezing it like that, and he's just like, "What the fuck are you riding one of them things for?" But so they weren't that competitive at world level. British level, they were fine, but world level was a big step.
Yes. And was riding for Steve Parrish. I bet that was an experience.
Fucking hell, yeah, it was an experience. He good mate, but like non-stop.
Like full on prankster.
Oh fucking hell, non-stop. He was. How many pounds have I spent tonight? Just non-stop. He had a good team, and he's a really hard-working guy. And but the team was like, there's no budget really. It looked great, and we were winning it in England. We were winning everything. The bikes were brilliant. The handle. They weren't the fastest, but the handle was fantastic. So we could really get the most.
But like you say, that next step, it's always the same. Isn't it? It's always the same.
You go a domestic team going to world level, and like it never happened now. But then there was a few domestic teams having a go, but you were still. Jumping in there, and the Muzzy Kawasaki's were there, and factory Ducati. The Ducatis were a fucking joke.
Even then, it must have been millions of pounds, was it? Still?
Yeah, even then, yeah. The Ducati teams, from what I view, Kawasaki have always been strong in the Superbike, but then the Yamaha had to go a few years, and we'd turn up with our bike built in Scunthorpe, and they'd turn up with the Belgarda Special, like different.
Difficult. And after you finished fifth in the World Superbikes, was it then back to BSB Britain, after then?
Yeah.
And what team did you sign for?
They were still Loctite. So I stayed
with Parrish?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Okay.
So I rode for him back in England, and I won the championship that year. And then at the end of that year, I took over the team as player manager.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering when this transition happened. All right, so you took over from his team. Was it over a couple of arm wrestles and a couple of pints?
Yeah.
Tell you what, son, sit over there, I'll take the reins.
Well, he was losing a bit of interest, I think, and he had loads of things going on. He was commentating all the TV, he was doing his truck racing.
Yes.
He had loads of stuff going on. He wasn't really getting anything out of the thing other than like enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
So Yamaha asked me if I would take it over, really. So
was that through an injury? Did you stop riding yourself?
Me?
Yeah,
eventually, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, like that year when you went from riding to team manager?
Oh, right, no. I rode for 2 years as player manager.
Right, okay.
So
player manager, I like that. I like that. I like that.
Well, the first year I took it on, I took it on as British champion. So, and I had a guy called Paul Brown, who was riding a 250. So it's pretty much my team, so I could do pretty much what I want. So I convinced Loctite to run a 250 in our team. So I had one superbike rider, which was me. And then Paul Brown on the 250, and had a great time. And he was a fantastic little rider. He was local to me in Scunthorpe.
Must have been handy being the manager and the rider when it comes to doing
kept
salaries. Just add an extra zero on there and another one.
That workload must have been horrendous.
It was. I was riding really well still, and I was really quite enjoying it still, and putting it all together. I had some good guys around me, and it wasn't crazy budget, but it was quite stressful, making sure it all clicked and the money came in and the sponsors. You know, you end up, it got bigger and bigger, and it did get a bit tougher in the end.
So how many years did you do that role?
Well, I only did it for 2 years. In '93, I retired. So,
all right, so player manager, I like that.
Yeah. It's like a football referee.
Isn't it? I like that. So what? Sorry.
So I could bollock myself, but I was a bit of an ass sometimes. If things weren't going right, I'd freaking kick off and
toys out the pram job.
Tell me off. You know, it's good. We don't get a bollocking for anybody.
I'm gonna go have a word with myself. Everyone carry on.
And when you said you hung the leathers up in '93, and mentioned through an injury, talk us through that?
Oh dear.
What quarter? What bike?
Yeah. Well, it was '93, and it was the year we'd signed James Whittam to ride with us.
All right.
And it was a team called Fast Orange Yamaha, and it was part of Loctite, a Loctite brand, and they rebranded everything to this Fast Orange Yamaha. And it was a new bike. It was a Yamaha YZF. So the OW01, I rode from a Grand Prix bike, which was like, what is this? Like a big sofa bed riding around. And I thought, so then YZF came out. I thought, well, this is maybe the next level up. But it went back. In my mind, it went backwards. It was a proper road bike. But Whittam had been riding a shitbox Suzuki, and it was quite a trick Suzuki, but it was an old thing. And when he got on this YZF, he totally loved it. He absolutely fell in love with it, and I hated the thing. But he just clicked, and he was just unreal. He just won every race, whatever. The competition was John Reynolds and the Nortons and those sort of guys. So it was quite a strong championship. But we were first and second most races. I was hanging on. He was winning everything, and I was scraping through. But I was second in the championship. So we got to Mallory Park with the second to last round, and I just needed to finish top three of it, and I would have been second in the championship. So he would have won. I would have been second. Happy days. So the guy that day was the guy called Simo. I forgot his name now. Simo. What's Simo's name? I can't remember his name. That's terrible.
He sounds legit.
Simo.
Oh God, that's really bad. That. But anyway, he's really great. He's on a Norton, and Jim Moody, and I think I was leading. And the plan was, and actually Andy Smith from Yamaha was his day to be team manager. I mean, I was a manager, but when I was on the bike, he was team manager. He was taking it over.
Yeah.
So he'd come down for the day, and I'm going to be manager today. So the plan was, right, Whittam, you just follow me, even if I'm second or third or what, just follow me, and then do the first race, 2 legs. First race, I'll finish second in the championship, then you just crack on and win the next one if you like. Right, okay. So I was leading, and then Jim Moody come past me, and he started to pull away, and Whittam's trying to pass me like this. And like this, I'm like, fuck, halfway through the race, let's just get it finished. Anyway, he went up the inside of me at the S's at Mallory before the chicane.
Lake S's, like the fast one, yeah.
And he lost the front like that, took me straight into the barrier there. So I woke up in hospital a couple of days later I was a bit beaten up. But I was actually thinking of retiring anyway. But
even worse.
And that sort of forced you into retirement.
It did, I'd sort of, it was a shit year because it was a rainy year when Wayne Rainey got hurt and he's paralysed, and it was Senna got killed. It was like,
God, Bennett.
Well, yeah, Wayne Rainey was like Mr. Perfect, never crashed at all, and he was just such a pretty great guy. Mm-hmm. And when he crashed and got hurt, and I mean, I crashed my brains out. I was crashing every week. I think, fucking hell, if it could happen to him, I don't really do it anymore. It was a bit of a wake up, and I was a bit tired of flipping.
Hurting yourself.
Yeah, and hanging on all the time.
What was the injury from that crash?
Femur, shoulder, lung.
And two days you can't remember. Yeah. God, Bennett.
Yeah. Well, I woke up. It's like one of them. You wake up and go, "Come on, how can I get back out for the next race?" I'm going to be in Leicester Royal Infirmary.
You're in a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
So I know we keep asking about ages, but it's lovely to get a little timeline. So what age would that have been then?
33. I retired when I was 33. So
right.
So not a long career, really.
But I guess
Not when you talk about that,
I guess
you've done it.
doing those few years of like player manager kind of led on perfectly to your next sort of career in the race. And then obviously, when I first started watching racing, I remember going to like Donington and whatever and watching the R6 Cup, and we'll get on to that. But so after that season finished, did you take a little bit of time out, or did you go straight back in as a team manager?
No, I sort of recovered over the winter and just took the job on. We went back to Loctite Colours, and we run Jim Moody and Mark Farmer the next year. And I was working really for Yamaha. I was on a bit of a retainer for them and put it all together. And Yamaha were sort of controlling the purse strings and pretty much with the sponsors and so on. Mm-hmm. So it just evolved into that. And then, do you want me to fast forward a bit?
Yeah,
those years were tough because there wasn't a lot of budget, and it looked great. Everybody thought we had loads of budget, but it was one of them where
that's the biggest problem with this game, isn't it? Because you've got to look professional to try and drag people in, even though you haven't. None of us are going to pop the piss in.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's that difficult.
Well, and then a couple of guys with the dollars turn up and take it to the next level. It's like,
stuffed, aren't you?
Yeah.
And was the Boost Yamaha team, is that linked?
Well, that was
Cadbury's Boost.
That
was the another iconic one.
Well, that was 96 that started, and it was so we'd done 95 with the Loctite team, and then Yamaha had got a PR company involved, and they managed to get these sponsors together and landed Cadbury's Boost. So
brilliant.
Yeah, this was the purple patch of my managerial time. Yeah, because Yamaha had got these sponsors in, and they'd also managed the superbike team in Italy with the factory bikes who were pulling out, so they were going to concentrate on 600, and they were dumping the superbike. So Yamaha managed to get a deal with them that we could have the bikes. It's like, fucking hell. Those bikes, what we were dreaming and drooling over, we're going to get them. We'd raced against them with Whittam, and they were beautiful bikes. So then it was like, who can we get to ride them? This is when I was still working with Yamaha, and Neil was coming back, and he'd done a bit of World Superbike, but I think he had a few options, but he was looking at coming back. So Mackenzie, my bestie. So I went to talk to him. And he wasn't convinced originally because he'd seen the Yamahas, and like what we had were they're sort of okay, but not going to run against Ducatis anymore. And I said, we're going to get these factory bikes. And Yamaha, yeah, sure you are, Rob. Yeah, the bikes are beautiful. Anyway, sure enough, I drove to. We went over in a truck. I flew in actually, but the guys went in a big truck to Belgardi Yamaha and in Milan. And the time I got there, all the vans loaded up, doors shut. Oh, we've got everything, Rob. I'm like, what? So I'm walking around. What about that there? What about those wheels there? What about that engine there? Open the fucking van up. So we opened the van up, and Massimo Merigali and David Brivio. Brivio's running the Suzuki team now, and Merigali's running. Is he running he's running Rossi's setup. So those were the two guys working there, and they were really quite good friends of ours. And I'm going, come on, guys, what are you going to do with that? So he literally squeezed every little bit. Was walking around picking wheels up and cylinder heads up, and everything they had. We just rammed it in this truck, shut it up, and brought it back.
These two nudging each other. They're from East from Scunthorpe.
Yeah.
That's what these lads are like from round together. They jam the thing.
But we did. We literally just raped the workshop.
Good lad.
And then got it back to Scunny. And then got Neil to come over and look at these bikes, and he just blew me away. He was hook, line, and sinker then. And his deal with Yamaha didn't have any budget really. Didn't do it for a lot of money, but he just saw the bikes
and thought this
could work. It was a little. When I think about it, it's a little bit like I was like 3 or 4 years ago, where I didn't really want to stop. Wasn't going to earn a fortune at it, but he still wanted to race. You know, so he got a bit of. He had some sponsors and stuff like that, but he wasn't a big earner for him. And we signed James Whittam as his partner. Well, James had cancer the year before. He'd had lymphoma, which was Hodgkin's disease, and he'd been really poorly and got through it, but bald as a coot and yellow. And I'm saying we need to give James a go to Yamaha. And they're going, I don't really know if that's the best thing. He hadn't raced. Obviously he was strong the year before, but he'd been poorly. And it was a big risk of is he going to be fit enough? Can he take a crash?
Yes,
he's bald. So
can't trust a man who's bald.
Well, anyway. So they agreed to it, and we signed him up, and it was the best year ever. I mean, they were really great mates anyway. And Whittam was on fire. He got on that bike, and he ended up crashing at the very first race, and he lost the championship in the end by one point.
That must have been right now. Obviously, not putting words in his mouth, but that must have been lowest of the lull. Going to someone's put me on these bikes. That must have been fantastic for him.
But Whittam, but Neil Mackenzie was just he was just fantastic on those bikes. He just gelled with it, and he sort of was he was so enjoying his racing again. He's back at home racing at circuits, what he loved, and he was a man. And he was a benchmark, and to be fair, Whittam was brilliant all year, and it was a real rollercoaster year because two of my best mates really, one was going to win and one wasn't, and it was going to, so it was an amazing year that year, and it put us on the map, and Mackenzie's was on fire. I mean, I think I came back from GPs that when and I sort of hung on for a year or two, and I was still sort of fast enough to win, if you like, and I was still sort of GP sharp, and then it slowly went like that, and I sort of dropped down to sort of be that level, if you like. When Neil never did that, he was. I mean, the bikes were brilliant. To be fair, the bikes were probably the best on the grid at the time, but his level stayed really high. We put Whittam with him his first year. And then Chris Walker. I think Chris Walker was the next year. Then Steve Islop, 3 proper serious teammates, and he dusted them off. He raised his game as well. But so we're first and second for the 3 years on the trot. So it was an amazing time for us.
God, Bennett.
Yeah, it was a brilliant time for us.
So how did the R6 Cup come about then?
Well, that was quite a lot later, really. I mean, we had a tough time at the end of that last year with Cadbury's Boost. Yamaha had a bit of a fallout with their PR company, and all the sponsors disappeared. We had no sponsor at all. So 98, British champs, 3 times British champs, 3 times first and second British championship, no sponsor at all. And this was like,
Bennett. But that was sobering.
Well, yeah, it was a real wake up, and it was like in the midnight hour, probably end of October, November, where everything went tits up. And Neil was the current British champion. A brand new bike had come out, the Yamaha R7. It's still 750 class. And the R7 came out, it was a beautiful bike, and Hager was riding at the world level. It was really trick-looking bike. When we got out this R7, nothing, no budget, we had little sponsors, little bits and bobs, but no major sponsors. Like, what are we going to do? I had another business.
So at that point, how much were you looking for? No, it's enjoying hearing the figures.
200 grand probably.
So that was a big sponsor that you needed.
Bikes.
The one.
Oh,
just the one,
just
right?
Neil. Yeah, we just strapped it all down. We had one bike. We was looking to try and raise about 200 grand. We sort of got bits and bobs in places.
Yes, but you needed that one lump to.
Yeah, sort of. And
in today's money, would that be about 600 grand?
Oh, well, was he? 99. That was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. God,
yeah,
Bennett.
One bike. Yeah. So, but yeah, relatively, the cost of going racing then was a lot less. But so we had nothing. I had a business. I actually had a parcel franchise. It was A&C then, which went on to be FedEx. And it's good. I had this business running behind the scenes for quite a few years. So to a point where, like Neil and I, literally were going around the country asking friends of ours who had businesses and using carriers, would you swap to our carrier if it meant that carrier might sponsor us? And trying to get them. Some of them had big companies spending a lot of money with the carrier. And it was quite an easy. I thought it was quite an easy sell.
Yes.
Sending a parcel. They're just sending a parcel. Why don't you sell it with us? And maybe we'll get a kickback on it. But crazy. We were trying to sell it anyhow, and we couldn't get anything. So we decided to go and test the bike still in a Jerez, I think we went to. So we shipped out there. Didn't have a sponsor. I was sort of paying for this because we thought we could probably scrape through. Maybe half the season.
So at this point, this was a gamble.
Let's see if we
can get picked up.
Yeah, it was. We got a brand. Neil Mackenzie is a British champion. It's the official Yamaha team. Yamaha had a bit of budget, but not enough really. so we built the bike and we went to Spain and started testing. And I got a phone call from a guy called Rhys Boyd who works for Virgin Limo Bikes. These taxi bikes, which are based in Leicester Square actually, but it's a bit of a just a bit of a PR type thing really. But it's a great little business, and he rides one of the bikes, and I think he raced a little bit. And he said, and his boss rang me. He said, "Oh, we've heard about your plight and all that. I think I put a bit of a word in. Ring this guy." And this guy called, I'll come to him in a minute.
Richard Branson.
Simo.
Simo, yeah. Simo is there again. Will Whitehorn, who was actually Richard Branson's right-hand man.
Right.
So he says, he says, ring this guy. So I'm in Spain, so I rang this guy up. Literally, phone call, and they said, yeah, I've heard about you. We know that what you're doing. We know you've been let down. It's a real good sort of Virgin story, really, like the underdog. And he said to me, I said, we really need about 150, something like that, just to get it through. And we'd scrape through. He said, right, yeah, okay, that sounds all right. Yeah. Get your car from Yamaha to give me a call and we'll set it up. I'm like, fuck. You know.
I should have asked for 250.
Well, yeah.
Damn it.
So I put the phone down. I rang my boss at Yamaha, Andy Smith, and I said, bloody hell, I don't know if the guy's a bullshitter or if he's the man. But he says he's up for it. Will you give him a ring? So he says, right, okay. So he rung him. This is like, 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I'm in Spain. And so he rings him. He rings you back in 10 minutes. He says, he's either a bullshitter or he's the man. And he was the man. So that was the story of the Virgin contact. So it was
fantastic.
Virgin Limo Bikes. We run Neil that year just on the R7, which wasn't competitive in the end. And then, but what come from that was the relationship with Virgin was fantastic. I got to meet all the guys there, and they were a really young group of guys and girls, and I knew just meeting them that if I ever got them to an event, they would love it. They were, you know what it's like if you got people that like-minded people who are really PR driven and they're young and they're vibrant, and if they get to see the BSB paddock with 30,000 people there. The passion.
Hook, line and sinker.
Oh, and I got them there.
Speed, the smell.
Everything. I got them there and they flipping just fell in love with it. Honestly, it was brilliant. And then the launch of Virgin Mobile was the end of 99. The end of 99. So they planned to scrape through 99 with just Virgin and then launch Virgin Mobile with us. And they used us and the BSB and my team as a real big platform for them. It was a big part of their budget. But I just timed it brilliant. I was so lucky, really, and I got on well with them really, really well. A great set of guys, and they just wanted to do more and more, and they loved it. And I don't know if you can remember, eventually when we launched the Virgin Assets Cup, they had like Virgin police girls turning up.
I
in,
remember.
Shorts. Yeah. I was just sort of throw it out there.
Yeah,
but honestly, they'd have a budget.
Get my Google out.
Yeah.
Hold on,
They had a budget for what we needed, but then they had probably more behind the scenes to make it work, like a proper sponsor would do. But that's what they are. They're a brand, and they really wanted to make it work.
And with the R6 Cup, was that pushed from Virgin side, or was it more of a Yamaha thing?
Yeah, no, totally. It was Yamaha, and Andy Smith was part of the very first RD 350, which you guys have got no idea what it is, but it was the benchmark of it was called a Pro Am series. So the pros, which I was like a pro then because I was actually riding a superbike type thing, and the AMs, people like Neil McKenzie were just coming through, so they just pick a key out of the hat.
And off you went.
And off we went on these RD 350s. It's mental.
Well, the Pro Am, they had a bit of a Pro Am thing a couple of years ago at BSB.
That's right, yeah. Neil was, all them old boys.
Yeah.
So some of the guys come from Neil McKenzie, Alan Carter, some of them guys come through that. And I was like a pro, as in like a big fuck off target. So these young kids, I was like Rob Mac, I was doing superbike, and they put these pros in there, and they're just like, you're just a big target for these kids.
Dish out some strips.
Yeah, so that was in 82 time that was. So Andy Smith was part of that from Yamaha. So then we had a talk to him about
sort of recreating it.
Yeah,
but with the
so it's similar
R6.
with the R6 Cup, because the R6 had just come out, so there was a big promotion for worldwide for that. Virgin, oh man, they just fell for it. They totally loved the idea of that. 36 Virgin bikes, the whole story of giving these young kids a go. Because I sold it to to Andy really, and to Stuart Higgs got on board with it, but it was to replace this junior super stock, which I don't know what it's like. It's probably gone back to that, but that junior super stock was a bit of a joke because there was guys there who had 2 or 3 bikes, who were spending all winter in Spain testing. There was all sorts of cheating going on. There was a guy in the tranny van who was meant to be 4, had no chance. So I was saying, that very first starter class should be police better, and it should be
with the police woman.
Yeah, but it should be a way of creating, letting being
a level
even,
playing, yeah,
and letting some cream come to the top. And there was no way it was happening. The guys with the big motorhomes and the spare bikes and all the testing they'd done, they were at the front every weekend. And
I remember going to BSB around that time and watching, and I used to love the whole concept of the R6 Cup. Now, is it true that at each weekend they would turn up and pick the key out of a hat?
No.
Or did you have the same bike for the year?
Yeah, they kept the same bike for the year, but this is what I wanted to do, and we said to Stuart Higgs that we would police it. We would take all the bikes home, make sure everything's even. They can only practice with this. They can have so many tyres, and the whole plan was just it's a totally even playing field that the cream would come to the top, and it would be, a great series. And funnily enough, a lot of those guys who had all the big dollars never entered.
Because they knew they might be it would have been at a disadvantage.
Totally, yeah. So it was a fantastic series. The first couple of years the first year was probably the best. Because it was the first year and it was fresh, and we got the Cal Crutchlow came through. Cal finished second to Tommy Hill, and Kieran Clark, and
is Kieran Clark the stunt rider now?
I think he is. Yeah, I mean he's a good motocrosser at the time.
I think he works in for proper movies.
Oh, does he?
In Hollywood and stuff.
Graham Gowland did it as all sorts. Ollie Linsdale did it.
Billy McConnell.
Billy McConnell,
he won it.
Yeah.
Well, that was
and
a
obviously
thing.
the winner got a ride in the superbike with the Virgin.
Well, that was the thing. So it was all sort of budgeted in that we put this thing together, which was a big thing and a big budget and a monster to try and run. But then the whole thing was to speed it all up. So you might get someone win the Super Sport Championship. Eventually, you might get a go on a superbike, and he might get there in 3 or 4 years. Well, this was a chance to go from Scunthorpe straight to Man U. Not that we were Man U, but straight to the Premier League.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a big gamble, and our superbike probably wasn't the best, but it was not a bad bike. But you needed someone like Tommy Hill, who was fucking prepared to have a go on it. The second year, I think a guy called Richard Wren won it, and it was proper scary when you put him on a superbike. I didn't like it at all. It ended up crashing it.
So you had James Hayden riding for you in the superbike team, didn't you?
No, that was yeah.
Well, I had James Hayden on the podcast.
Oh, right, cool, yeah.
I
202, that was it. 202, 203, James. Well, he was with us on the R7 in 2000, and then he come back and rode the R1 a bit later on.
Now, just a quick question: from running the R6 Cup, who was the most talented rider that in your time?
Go on.
What, from the R6 Cup?
From the R6 Cup, yeah. Maybe not didn't do the best or go on to do something, but who was the best raw talent that you see in that class?
Okay,
that is a good question.
It is a good question now, but I tell you what, it's too hard to say that because there's so many good guys and there's so many good Aussies. Honestly, the Aussies came over and it was like a ticket for them. They come from the other side of the world, and this was and it was nearly a make or break for a lot of them. And getting a chance to win something like that on standard bikes, they were so up for it. And really, this is. Did
it work with a flat? Did you pay 20 grand or something?
Yeah, it was 15 grand.
And then what about crash damage?
Everything covered.
Never.
Yeah, 15 grand. You paid your money, and a few of them were bloody complaining about. But it was 15 grand over instalments, and you got a brand new bike, and you got a brand new bike. Well, it was the same bike, but anything happened to it, brand new. If you wrecked it, it'd give you a new one. Tyres. Entry fee.
What an opportunity!
I would
prize
crawl
money
at the wall for an opportunity.
Well, the winner got the contract and the contract for the main team, and I can't remember if he got a prize money. The second guy got a new R6, and then there was prizes all the way through the year. And
I
organised, and we organised everything. We managed, and it was such a. It was quite an easy sell, Virgin for a start. You could sort of attach people to that name. The first year we had Iowa, which was one of James Hayden's sponsors, but they came on board, so it's Iowa. Second year it was Samsung. because Samsung wanted to do work with Virgin, and they're overlapping like that, and the way we're putting people together, it was such a fantastic brand to have people who wanted to be.
Did you all run out the same tent?
No, but
individual owners.
We all went out the same workshop, but we had 36 bikes, so they had their own camp.
All families are own this.
Well, they had their own camp, and then they had their own hospitality. Each person got a hospitality seat. It was vast, and then they had the same from a superbike team as well. So the superbike team had its own setup. It was a monster at the time.
It was a right headache for you.
It was because I was sort of. I still had to be the front man. Virgin needed me to be the front man for it, so I still did all the briefings with everybody and did track walks with kids, and Neil Mackenzie helped me with that, and I totally loved it though. I loved a lot of them. A lot of them really wanted to learn. A lot of them were arses.
I bet the disadvantage of your size in GPs, I bet it turned into a bit of an advantage when the kids started misbehaving. Well, did you have many problems with racing dads, by the way?
Oh, motocross dads, we call them.
Motocross dads, yeah. Well, a lot of them come from motocross as well. But it wasn't too bad. Stuart Higgs ran it all, so I didn't have to get too involved with anything like track or I think Stuart sorted it. I had to come in sometimes and give him my sort of point. But all in all, it was good, and it was always gonna wear out because you couldn't find 36 rides every year, and the plan was not. If it took you more than 2 or 3 years to get a result in one, that was not what it was about. It was meant to be, you land and poof, and and Billy McConnell came over. He finished second. Billy beat Brendan Rodgers was an Aussie guy, and he was proper super talented. He went on to ride for Ducati in the Superstock Series, World Superstock Series. He got a contract to go in for the factory team, but he got injured in the end. But great talent. But I mean, that first year with Cal and Tommy was flipping hard nose, and they were a bit more experienced on British tracks. They're still young kids. I mean, it was Tommy's last roll of the dice for sure. He was totally skinned, and they scraped enough budget to get a go, and it was like make or break. If he didn't make it, that was him gone.
Yes,
for sure. And he won the championship, got with us, had a few years with us, was brilliant, and then got away to Suzuki, and then Swan Yamaha and won the championship. So, but that was make or break for him.
It must have been fantastic in years to come to be like, that's probably the most famous ending of a BSB championship with him and Hopper and seeing him win the championship. Yeah. But knowing that kind of it's kind of your legacy that had a huge impact on. In a funny sort of way, without you, he might not have been there. So
I think someone like Tommy, then I think it was his last roll of the dice. I think Crutchlow would have got there eventually. I think he went on and got a decent deal with the Honda Super Sport team, and he got away. But I don't know what would happen for Tommy. I mean, Tommy might have got that sort of route as well. But he was on his mum and dad had put a lot into it, and it was pretty much end of his rope.
But like you say, that legacy left is like obviously Chrissy went down the Triumph Triple Challenge route, that sort of thing, and that's what's built your career up to that now, and winning championships.
I love what makes you. I think they're fantastic for racers.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people in the paddock didn't at the time because obviously there was teams there, already established teams we were going to replace. And there's
I definitely think for starter classes, like entry level classes, there's nothing better.
Well, this was the entry level class, and honestly, some of those teams were massive budgets. Engines, tweet and flipping, and like you say, testing spare bikes, and it's like that's not what it's meant to be like. That level, it's meant to be just get going. Everybody out of a tranny van and just go and see who comes to the top, and that's what we wanted to do.
So you decided, you stepped back from the R6 Cup. What was after
well, we did an R1 Cup for a couple of years.
Yes.
Because we just, and that didn't really go down that great in the paddock because it was the Superstock class. Again, there was a lot of cheating going on that.
Yes.
So we're sort of replacing that. But that was another fantastic thing. They got a great sponsor, a guy called Joe Henderson, who's a really good friend of mine, local guy, insurance guy, and he's big into his motorsports, and he frontline sponsored it. Really good package. So that was a really, again, one make series, R1s, we supply R1s, and good prize money, really good prize money, and at the end of the year, I think you won a new bike, but it was like $2,000 a race and things like that. It was really good. I packaged it all up with a sponsorship deal, and And it didn't really get. It needed the number. All these things need the numbers to make it work. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
you needed. I needed 30, at least 30 bikes for the R6 Cup to stack up, and I probably needed another 25, 30 R1s for it to stack up, and I didn't get enough entry for that. So that was always a bit ass nipping all the time, and there was a lot of crashing going on that. And John Kirkham turned up and won everybody race nearly. So that didn't really got moved up to 1000cc doing a similar thing. It wasn't a youngster thing. It was just like a fun race type thing, a level fun race. It was good because it was totally level. John Kirkham come on, loved the bike, and just dominated. Everybody thought he had a trick bike, and it was one of them jobs, you know.
He rode it harder.
Ducati Cup now, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a sort of similar thing.
Yeah.
And then, do you know, after the whole Virgin thing, did it go from there to the Motorpoint Yamaha?
Yeah.
And because when I first joined the BSB paddock, that was back in 2011, and I guess that coincided with around the time where you left the paddock. But I do remember the Motorpoint Yamaha. I remember Loris Bars and Alex Lowe's riding it.
Yeah.
And did that go on for a few years?
Yeah, well, that was another great guy there, from Motorpoint, and a good, really good. Motorsport guy, really into his motorsport guy called Gary Warren, who's passed away now, but lovely guy, and he loved his racing and managed to sort of get a deal with him. A guy, Jamie Dobb, an motocross world champion, was the guy who brokered that deal. But that was it was a time when the recession had hit and the sponsorship was dirty word, trying to get money in. Couldn't get enough money for the title sponsorship like most of these teams now, and you had to peg it all together. So I might have Motorpoint with a title sold at not enough money, so I'd go and have to find maybe 10 or more different level sponsors to make it all work. And when they all come in, happy days. Well, it all looks okay. But if you start dropping out, because really they couldn't do it in the first place, so there's just, we've all seen that. I had to end up footing the bill because like Motorpoint were brilliant and they're honouring their deal, and the whole thing had to work. So if someone's dropped 20 grand out of here and he stitched me up, they're not worried about that. This is the deal we've agreed. So I was winging it a little bit that with all the other sponsors who were supposedly agree to things and riders bringing money along. That was the time when the second rider needed to bring a budget, and it was the way it was going. And that was
the turn of the tide in that situation.
It was, it was inevitable that it was going to follow the car route, and most car drivers bring budget with them, big budget, and it was inevitable it was going to go that way.
Was that happening in cars years before?
Years before bikes, yeah.
Right.
But people would, bring sponsors, so it's not like you're paying for it, but you term it how you want it. But if you bring a sponsor, a lot of people bring a sponsor and they would earn from that sponsor as well as contribute to the team. So that's the way it was working. So he was ending relying a lot on the second guy to fill the holes, and then a lot of times the second guy probably maybe ain't fast enough, and the sponsors think happy. Well, that bike's shy. Well, actually, your guy's not really fast enough. The number one guy's doing all right,
Was that part of the reason why that you stepped away from the sport because of the sort of direction that it was going in that respect?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of factors really. I was stuck in it. And I should have got out a couple of years earlier, really. I would have saved myself a lot of money. But I had guys working with me for years. I didn't want to put them on out of work. And I was really passionate about it still. Although I was weaning it up. I've been doing it all my life.
I was about to say, since going to the Isle of Man with your dad, you can't just switch that off, can you?
Yeah, and I got other businesses going, so I had things to do. But it was my passion, and it's a bit annoying still, and a bit sad that the paddock is still built up with people like I was, totally passionate and somehow making it work. And I think the organisers and the promoters rely on people like that and like you who'll love racing, and you'll turn up somehow and you'll fund it somehow, and that's the way I was. And my new wife slapped me around the face and said, "What are you doing? Why are you doing it? It's costing you loads of money. You go in racing, you're not enjoying it. People
you're stressed out. You're
coming home like a bear. It takes you a week to get over it. And I'm like, what are you doing?" So it was a big wake up call, and then that was it really. And ironically, I pulled the pin when I could have kept it going. I still had Motorpoint as a title sponsor, and I still was scraping through. And all the guys got great jobs within a fortnight. So I wish I'd let them go 2 or 3 years earlier.
Yeah.
But they're all great guys.
But you didn't know that. You were looking after them.
Yeah,
Yes,
they're all really good guys and well respected in the paddock, and they got great jobs straight away.
Yes.
So and that was that. I sort of slept easy with that. Do you know what I mean? It was like
as you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, and I probably kept it going a year longer because of that. Because I didn't want to let them go.
Did you fancy getting a job within the race and things, or did you just walk away and just commentary or anything along those lines?
You see, it's interesting, though, that like you say, and what I love about the sport, it's a life, isn't it? The lifestyle. Look, at the end of the day, you haven't left, son. You're drinking beer on your driveway in a trailer, for God's sake. There's no couple of Geordie pillars. No, but you see what I mean? It does never leave you.
But I haven't been back. I've never been back.
Do you keep in contact with the race and like watching it? And...
Yeah, I love watching it from the settee now, and I keep in touch with Neil and stuff like that. And but I've only ever been back to drop Neil's caravan for Cadwell.
There we are.
I've never been to an event. I've never been.
And do you follow BSB World Superbikes MotoGP?
All of it.
Love it.
You know who's turned into, don't you?
Yeah.
His dad.
Well, yeah.
No, it is. You know what I mean?
I never thought about that.
No, that's it. It's like, what? No.
If I'm not having fun, then I don't want to know about it.
It's funny that because I think if I took my boy, he would get into it, and I don't really want him to get into it.
So you're driving by the circuit going, off to play tennis.
But honestly, for forever, I mean, and it's still not that long relative to some of the guys who are still in there, but you know, the pressure of putting it all together and then leaving home on a Wednesday night, Thursday morning, coming back on Monday, you know, oh man, I've got such a lovely life now. You know, I switched off, and I'm so lucky. I've got a lovely wife and 2 young kids, and I've got other things going on now. And honestly, I can't describe what my life is like now. It's just, I mean, lucky enough that the business bits have worked okay, and bits and bobs, and I'm quite chilled out. But I'm loving every minute of my new life without any of that stress, and you know, I'm 60 years old now, so you know I'm due a decent time as well.
That's it.
But and I mean the whole Rob McMemories thing, I guess, has kind of illustrated it. But that you can look back on such fond memories, and you've had such a great time out of the sport.
You've had a
but
hell
then
of a
you've also
career.
like sort of came out at the right time and then moved on to other in things in life that you can enjoy. But
I think and the memories are there, and it's not memories of like fantastic results because I didn't really have a lot, and especially at the time of the GPs, you know, 4th place was the best I ever did. But my memories are there, and
4th place that virtually nobody in the world gets to achieve. It's
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's all relative.
Well,
to,
I guess so, and when you see that, like say that Twitter stuff, you realise maybe that actually to other people it's a big thing, isn't it? And you get the passion coming back.
They've gone on that journey with you, and the journey that you've done is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed that bit of telling all that. But like some of my memories are fantastic, and I don't have any bitter ones. Really.
Good. Yeah, because that was going to be one of the like one of my questions, like any regrets. But no, you've been there, you've done it, it's fantastic.
I think, and at the time, I didn't really think I should be there. So he's one of them. And I think if he was a bit more ruthless and if I was a bit quicker and like I say maybe a bit lighter, and you know, like Foggy was, you know, he was a winner and he's the world champion. He was an animal, and I was never like that. You know, I was a bit in awe of most of the guys I was around, especially the GPs. So, you know, do I really want to stick it under Eddie Lawson and flipping knock him wide? No, really. You know, he's a legend. You know. So I just it was one of them where I've said it before that, especially that. The sort of 88, 86, 87, 88 years when I was there with Marlboro Yamaha and then Pepsi Suzuki, I was living the time, you know, like now when I'm retired I look back, oh, that was amazing. Actually, it was amazing when I was there, and I knew it was, you know. So when I was out there and I was following Kevin Swanson and Eddie Lawson, it was like, fucking hell, this is amazing. And I was sort of living the future, if you know. I was thinking, in 20 years' time, I look back
I'm
at
going to
this.
be laughing at this.
looking back at this, thinking, what amazing time. Actually, no, I'm here now, and I'm loving every minute of it. You know,
Good.
Yeah. So it's not often you get to have that feeling at the time. I don't think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you.
Well, I tell you what. Before we wrap things up, we'll go for a few quick fire questions. So get thinking of some. I'll start you off with who's the best rider that you've had enjoyed as a team manager when you've had a rider. Who's the rider that you've had most fun with, and who's the one that you really wish you hadn't signed?
God, it doesn't matter now, does it? I know, retired.
No, go for it.
That's. I mean, James Whittam was probably the best fun, and well, that year of Whittam and Mackenzie, my two besties. Yeah. So those two, that was brilliant fun. Who I wish I'd never signed. Loris Bass was
French.
Well, he was French, but to be fair, he really lifted.
He
us
rode
up.
for you when he was like 16 or 17.
He lifted us up. He was super fast, real natural guy. But honestly, the amount of work I put into that deal and his sponsor making it work was flying to Geneva, flying there to meet this sponsor, and the sponsor never put a fucking penny in, you know. And I carried him through nearly all the year, and no one really knew behind the scenes what was going on there. And you know, I had to put up with him, you know, deal with him when things were hard or whatever. But and there was never putting any money in, to a point where he'd left, and the motorhome guy who was hiring motorhomes off was chasing me for $5,000 and things like that. You know, it's like, so that. I don't really hold it.
That was the biggest headache.
I didn't really hold it against Laurie because I really quite liked the guy, but that's why I'm such a soft touch. You know, I'm so passionate about the racing, and I find someone like that.
You don't upset anyone.
I don't, not so much upset, but I really want him to do well for us, and I want to give him the best I can for him because, you know, you see these guys and they've got super talent, but behind the scenes it had to stack up somehow, and you know, and he had this big sponsor and just never turned up, you know. So then with the Motorpoint thing again, we're getting some results and we're getting there, and you know, no one's paying for it. It's like fucking hell, you know. So. So that was hard work, but I don't think
that was good answers anyway.
No, very good answers, very good. So out on track throughout all your career, out of all the meetings, all the disciplines, who was the biggest? Rolling up on the grid, and you thought, just fuck off, will you? That one rider that you thought, just why are you here? That one idiot, that one got under your skin, son, and you just went, just go home. Who was that one rider? We've all got them.
Really?
Who's yours?
It's yours, yeah.
You.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, it's got to. I don't. It's difficult that because I don't know. I really looked when I was at GPs. You say.
I'm talking even club days.
That's
what I mean. You had your arch nemesis, that one person that you just thought, just.
Oh, it's really funny.
You just stand down with there, son.
Like your most fierce rival.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny that because right back to the club days, and I can remember it as clear as day. I used to go to Cadwell, my local track, and you turn up there and you go to scrutineering and you look around and see who was there. And there's a couple of guys. There's one guy called Pete Wild from Sheffield who was like unreal.
Aptly named.
Yeah, but he was just unbeatable. He's a little tiny little guy on those 350s, so fast. And so you hang around scrutineering's getting nearly closed. You think, fucking hell, he's not here.
That's what I mean, those moments.
He's not here, we're a chance. And then about
he's going to be watching this on YouTube. Like, yes, I knew I was close.
I knew. And just before scrutineering closed, he'd fucking wheel up. He'd go, oh, Jesus, and you'd never see him again.
Hello, Rob. You all right, son? Yeah, I'm fine, mate. I'm fine. Go away.
Yeah, he'd just win every race, but I never really. I don't know. When I came back and raced with Foggy for a year, he was fierce. He was fierce, but I was he was going that way, and the Honda wasn't brilliant, and I was on my Yam, which I loved, and so it's a bit wasn't totally fair, but he wasn't happy if you managed to get one over him, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I never really, like I said, the GPs. It was like fucking. I'm not really expected to be Eddie Lawson, you know. I think all through my career, Gardner was my nemesis.
Right.
So, you know, whenever, because I was crazy for training. I mean, I was a big guy, so I had to run my heart out all the time. So, so Gardner was always my target. You know, he came up. He came from Aussie on a a Marowaki Kawasaki sit one big thing. It was a bloody missile. And he just got on with it, and he got the circuits, and he was a legend as soon as he turned up. And I was on my 750 TZ, and I was battling with him a little bit. So we sort of came up together, and he got the Honda. He went the Honda route, and I went Suzuki. And I got to get to the GPs before him, and he fucking hated that. and then he turned up, and he was unreal when he turned up, you know. So I was a little bit ahead of him for a while, and then he just took off, and he was like, "Fuck, you know." And he just, you know, he never really wasn't really a good mate of mine. I knew him really well, but he wasn't really a good mate of mine. He was such a fucking whinger, you know. He's one of these guys who go do pole position by the second, blitz everybody, but it would have been so much faster if I just got that. I'm like, fucking hell, Wayne, you know, you just
banged out.
Yeah, forget about it. Mm-hmm. But super competitive guy, so he was a bit of a nemesis, but he was so fast in the end, he couldn't.
Brilliant.
Well, we'll finish on this one. If you've got to organise like a sort of a night out, like a stag do type night out, and you can take 5 people from the racing sort of world, past or present, so they can be dead or alive. So 5 people that you would love to have a catch up with. Which 5 are going to make the list?
You got to have James Whittam.
Do you know what? Every single person that
we've said James Whittam,
Whittam. Mm-hmm.
You got to have James Whittam. I've got to have Neil McKenzie. You got to have Kevin Swans. Whittam and Swans are similar sort of party animals. I've got to have Eddie Lawson. Is that 4?
4.
One more.
No, it's a bit of a tough one. That I think. I mean, I never got that close to Wayne Rainey, as in mates. I played golf with him a few times, bits and bobs. But he was one of the guys who have so much respect for him.
Yeah.
And he's a proper funny guy. There's a few guys now, but I think I'd like Wayne there. Can I throw one more in there?
Go on then.
Bubba Shobert. And you won't know, but I met him at a couple of parties before he got injured, and he was such a funny guy. He's just such a funny guy, and they're all totally pissheads.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So that'd be good fun.
Yeah, fantastic.
Fantastic.
Well, it goes to say massive thank you for coming on the show. I know you, hopefully you'll start listening to them or watching them now. But massive thank you for taking your time out to come on. We really appreciate all the stories and stuff. And a big thanks to all of our patrons and our sponsor, Colchester Kawasaki. And anything else, Dom?
No, brilliant. Thank you for introducing your home on your driveway and everything. So.
One little thing that as soon as it does get a bit more normal and we can go out, and we're going to try and get a Roadmap Memories tour.
Fantastic.
So we've already got a few plans in place before I came back, but it's just all sitting on hold.
For people that would like to sort of book on to that, is there a website coming?
Not yet, nothing. We're just waiting to see where we're going to be next year.
We have an exclusive here on
Chase
the Race, and there we go.
We're going to start one in Alaman and then go to Ireland and just get a feel for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Seems to be really good.
Well, if you need a couple of hosts, we're cheap. We're starting off at 10 grand a meeting. You know what I mean?
Warm-up act.
Well, what I hope that is, as we go around, a lot of the guys who've chipped in, when we get to their area, will come and have the crack.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
So if we can get that happening.
And also, I know you said about your son, you want to keep him on the tennis route, but if he ever fancies a bash on the bikes, he can come out motocrossing with me, or if he wants to a little road race, and I'm sure Dom would have him out on his. What's that bike you've got?
Got a little Varley thing I got from Peter Hickman. That thing. It's a right cracker. But no, keep him on the tennis. You'll learn a lot more than any of us motorcycle races.
We trialled together. When I was keen on getting him on the bikes, we started trialling together. So he's gone up the trials to an 80. He had an 80 Beetle. We used to ride together.
Yeah.
But I shit myself watching him. It got pretty handy, to be fair. But I ended up just shitting myself watching him. He's like little skinny legs, and he's flipping. I'm like trying to get. So I thought.
Well, I hope one day I'm watching Wimbledon. And what's his name?
Harrison.
There we go. Well, hopefully we'll see. It'll be like
you and me will be commentating. You want to meet his dad? He's got some crack.
It'll be like the new Andy Murray, but with a personality.
Maybe.
Right, well, thanks very much, Rob.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Click, buy, deliver with the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki, proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.